Hello, morning. How are you? Everybody fine? Everybody safe? Good, good to know. Okay, did you manage to upgrade Angular and not Angular, Node.js? Sorry. Okay, what versions do you have? Good, that's a good one. Someone else? 13.12. Whoa, really? Ah, okay. Yeah, that's the latest one. Okay. Uh, okay, so let's start. This is, I think, one of the most important courses, if not the most important, because in the exam, you're going to need to create an Angular application. And anyway, suffice to say, if you manage to create an Angular application with the specified requirements, you pretty much easy from there. So it's basically passed. But I need you to pay very very close attention to this course because there are a lot of concepts that are hard. So this course is going to be very complicated. I hope I'm not going to lose some of you. But the idea is that the concepts that we're going to learn today, uh, we are going to use we're going to use you are going to use to make the project during the exam and so on. So okay, let's get started and let's start sharing the screen. Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, one of you at least can see my screen. Good. So we go into course 4. We make a new folder. I think we made this last time. And we can open here a command line. We can open it via Visual Studio Code with Control tilde. So you can something like this. Tilde is the button on top of the tick. I don't know. Oh, tilde. I'll type it in chat anyway. And is the terminal not showing correct? My sides. Ah, okay. Fine. So inside here, we're going to create a new Angular application. So if you have Angular CLI, you should have something like, if you type ng ---- version, you should have something like this. If you install correctly Angular CLI. Everybody has Angular CLI installed? Someone else? Okay. So here we're going to say ng new. So new creates a new application. We're going to say the name of our application. So we're going to continue with our pizza site. So let's say pizza here. And to be sure that you all get the same thing as I get when I generate a new application, I'm going to say minus routing equals true. like this. So it's going to be ng new pizza minus minus routing equals true. Put it in chat now. So here you can just say CSS if it will ask you. If you don't have by default your Angular CLI configured as interactive, it will not ask you to select. It will just use the defaults. But for here, just gonna select the default CSS, and you should have in course 4. Actually, let's move this inside course 4 after this finishes. Gonna move this inside the course 4. So what's happening now is that, as you can see, we have some new files created for us, and now there's something called installing the packages. Right now, what's happening is that npm node package manager will go online and find the packages that are required to install Angular and to run Angular with all the default specs. The idea with Angular CLI, I don't know. I think in Python it's called Anaconda, so it's something similar. Also a CLI tool. So I'm just gonna move this inside. If I can. Hopefully it will not take forever. So anyway, did you manage to create the new app? Okay. Okay. So while it's installing, I'm going to talk to you about a bit about Angular and why are you using Angular. So the idea is that Angular is a front-end framework that it's used to build web apps in HTML, CSS, the JavaScript, and TypeScript. Angular is written entirely in TypeScript. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, which means that what? It's crashed. Quentin cannot join the meeting. Okay, let's see why. Can someone help him to the link? Sweet. Okay, let's help Quentin to join this. So for everybody else, they finished to install packages. Okay. So for you, it's blocked. What do you mean nothing changed? You don't have anything inside the folder? Hmm. Reprocessing. Okay, we're gonna wait for this. Um, okay, let me see if I can move my pizza up inside the first floor. Currently I can't. Okay. Okay. So as I was saying, TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. This means that whatever JavaScript that we have, every JavaScript is valid TypeScript, right? So it's an inclusion. The thing that TypeScript brings to that's extra in TypeScript is the fact that we can type different variables. We can have we can have typed variables just like in Java or C Sharp. Right? This makes Angular very useful when you're going to use it with enterprise applications like Java applications that are written in Java Spring or in .NET. Or, the idea of Angular is to have components. Is to have reusable components. So let's say we make a product component, and we are going to use it like we're going to do today for our pizza application. We're going to reuse it everywhere in the application, or most everywhere in the application. Some other thing is that Angular applications have a pretty well defined structure. So this means that if if a developer that goes from a project to another project, if you have a developer like that is used to Angular, it's very easy for him to adapt. This is in contrast with other frameworks, other JavaScript frameworks like React or Vue.js or Svelte, or where the user is defining its own structure. So it's a bit more uniform over the ecosystem. Um, so as I said, very used to in the corporate world. We are learning Angular because most of the interviews on if you go to an internship or if you go somewhere on web development, I don't know, stage or whatever, most probably you're gonna hit Angular or something that's developed over TypeScript, or will implement the same principles. The idea is that all of these frameworks that I said before, like React, Vue.js, Angular, they implement the same the same pattern. You have a component that is reused. The component has inputs and outputs. They implement some sort of services, and basically it's the same thing for all of them. So if you learn Angular, for example, very well, it's going to be very easy for you to adapt to another framework, for another library. So the UI that we're going to create, the application that we're going to create, we're going to create the front-end application. It's going to communicate to the backend. Right now we don't have a backend, but let's say we have a server in the backend. It's going to communicate to what? You remember from the last courses? What is the, how will you communicate with the server-side application? Through what? Anyone? Yeah, but those HTTP requests will hit what? Exactly. What is it called? Some sort of interface. An API, yes. Yeah, you can consider, more or less you can consider servlet also, some sort of API. Okay, so we are going to use the APIs to communicate with our server side. So basically, the UI will only handle the presentation part and some logic that it's only used for the presentation there. Okay, everybody has the application installed. Do we have? We stressed a bit the time, so everybody managed to install. Alize, did your application finish installed? Still blocked. What the hell? Are you sure you don't have a text editor or something that blocks that folder? So try to see if you have rights. If you have rights, first of all, to write on that folder. By the way, if you are using this on a Mac or Linux, I think you need to use it sudo, so you have access to write on that file. Okay. Okay, let me know when you finish installing. So okay, let's talk a bit about what was installed on our computer. So as you can see, this is our pizza application that was installed with Angular CLI. So here we have something. The first folder is called E2E. It's called end-to-end. Means end-to-end. It's used for end-to-end testing. We're not going to touch this. As a gist, it's used to create smoke tests or to create usability tests, just like with the real user. So it's something called Protractor, which creates tests that behave like a human user. So if you want to know more, you can read the documentation. Then we have the node modules. These node modules are what were installed by npm to allow our application to run. As you can see, we have a lot of them. We have Angular, Babel, and so on. Webpack. We should have Webpack here somewhere. So we have a lot of modules here that are allowing us to run the application. One base rule is that when we move the application from, let's say you want to give this application to work collaboratively, you are not going to pass these node modules because they are quite heavy. It's quite a lot of information here. We are just going to copy everything except node modules. And the other person is just going to run here npm install. And this is going to be regenerated. Sorry. So the idea is that I think if you look in the git ignore here, the node modules are ignored. So we don't commit this, we don't pass this to some other developers. Other than that, we have the source folder. In here, we have our application. Inside, we have our app folder, assets, and environments. In the app, we're going to have all our modules and components and the meat of our application. Then in the assets, we're going to have images or CSS or whatever you want to pass. And in the environments, you can provide different environments. In this case, you have production and development. If you look at this one, we have production false by default. You can add here whatever params you want, and you can, depending on the environment that you have, you can switch them. Let's say that you have a continuous integration system like Jenkins or I don't know, something else. You could have different environments for every deployment environment that you have. So we're not going to go too much details here. Here we have our main TypeScript file. It's just like a main method in like a C application. So basically here we're just bootstrapping the application. We're not really going to touch this too much. There's not much reasons to touch this file here. It's just a bootstrap file. Then we have the index.html, and here you can see it's just like a normal HTML file, but instead we have this weird tag here, which is called uproot. So basically, what is going to happen is that our application is going to run inside this uproot tag. Everything is going to run inside that. By the way, if you want to see how this looks, you can go into your terminal. See if I have one or more. It's fine. So you can just type here ngserve. You have to be inside the folder that was created. So when you did the ng-new, you have to be inside that folder that was created. So if this works, you should have a development server build for you. So this is one of the development tools that Angular comes with. Provides the developing server for us, and allows us to see it in real time and hot reloading. So you can see we have it's compiling all our files. We're going to put a command here also in ngserve. Well, what's happening now is that it takes every resource, every JavaScript, every TypeScript file that you created. I was telling you that TypeScript is an extension of JavaScript. The problem is it's a super JavaScript. The problem is that older browsers, or browsers in general, they don't understand TypeScript yet. So to understand TypeScript, we need to transpile that. So we need to convert that to JavaScript, to plain JavaScript. So all this process here, the compiling process here, it's creating this, as you can see, it created 5 JS files. So everything is converted to JavaScript, including the styles. Like even the styles are created to JavaScript. So we have all these files here, main.js and so on. If we go now on localhost 4200, our browser, we should see the default Angular application that we have, and with the title pizza app is running. You should have the same. So please check if this works for you, and please check if you have this page. So I'm waiting for responses if you have them. Until you check, I'm going to continue with the description of the other files. So after that, we have polyfills, still creating the app. Oh my God, still creating the app. Okay, so we have by the way, as a parenthesis, on the exam, please come with the app already created. Don't waste time during the exam. So come with the application, empty application created from home. So don't wait during the exam to create the application, because you're going to waste a bit of time. Okay. So it's okay for you. Okay. We have this polyfills file. Basically, this you can add different pieces of code that, let's say you want to create your Angular application for an older browser. So let's say for older browsers, there are JavaScript code. There is JavaScript code that doesn't work. So you created this piece of JavaScript that makes an adaptation of the new version of JavaScript. And with this, you're gonna be able to run your Angular application in an older version, older browser. Anyway, not gonna insist much here. Here you have your main styles, your global styles, and here you have a general test that you can add. By the way, all the components that we're gonna add by default they come with tests created already for them, so default tests. So this is pretty much it. What's really important I haven't told you about is that this package JSON here. You saw me executing ngserve, right? So this ngserve is all these commands you can have here like this. These are the default commands that Angular comes with. So by default, ng basically you run them through npm. So you run through like npm run, let's say ng, but there is a shorthand, let's say for start, it's just npm start. And you can see that our command will start the Angular, the Webpack server, the development server. The command start is alias for ngserve. Yeah. So you can just start, instead of saying ngserve, you can just say npm start with the command there. So with this, it's basically the same thing. You can create your own commands. You can say, instead of build, you can say I don't know, build prod. You can say here, I want to build the application in production, the production version of our application. It's ng build, I think it's prod, like this. So you can add as many commands as you want. In real life, real application, they have a lot of commands here for development purposes and so on. So these are our commands. We have obviously the name of our application, the version. The version is very important when you work in a collaborative way, or when you want to have a continuous integration system. You want to know every time what is the version of application. There are commands in npm that can increment automatically this version here. Then we have something called dependencies and dev dependencies. The dependencies that we have are the modules that npm installed us in node modules that are used to create our Angular application. So when you are going to compile the application and distribute it, we're going to use all of these dependencies here to create that application. The dev dependencies, they are not used, they are not compiled, they are just used to help us develop the application. For example, we have Karma. Karma is the testing framework. We have Protractor, which is an end-to-end framework. We have TypeScript. Obviously, we don't just need TypeScript just to create the application, not to run. As I said, TypeScript gets transpiled to JavaScript. We have the Angular CLI that we don't need in production. We don't need to deploy the application with Angular CLI, right? So just keep in mind that you have your commands here that you can add. You have your commands here you have your dependencies to build your application. You have your dev dependencies that are used to help you build the application, but they are not going to be compiled. Okay, so we're going to go a bit slow today because this is a very important class, and I really want everybody to understand. So far, who doesn't have a working application? Did you manage to see the screen, to launch the server? Okay, 2 yes, 3 yes, and that's it. Okay. So if we go in our application here, we can go in our index.html here, right? And we can see that we are loading our entire application in this uproot. So every Angular application must have a module and a component. So it has must have a root module and a root component. So in our case, if you go here, we have an app module, which is the default module for our application. So here, as you can see, we have our main component, our app component that's run the first time. Obviously, you can replace this with something else if you want. You don't need to use app component the first time, but anyway. And then you have the browser module, which is used to create an infrastructure for all for the Angular for all the Angular modules that we're using. We have the routing module, which is going to help us to navigate through our application and so on. So what you need to remember is that here in the imports, we are going to import other modules and other components, and in the providers, we are going to put the services. So far, we're just gonna leave it to this. So here we're gonna have the services, which you don't have any service now. Here we're just gonna put the components. Then we have our app component here. So this is our main component that we're running now. So if you look here, if you go in app component HTML, this is basically our just here. It's basically our splash screen. So what we have here, if you delete everything above the router outlet in the app component HTML and save, very important, you're going to see that our application recompiles and we don't have anything in the main screen. So you can just write something like, I don't know, hello here, and the application is going to recompile and it's going to have this. Everybody has this? So in app component HTML. You cannot make the app. What? Do you have an error? Do you get something? I said we have keep installing packages. Are you using some sort of proxy or something like that? Do you use some proxy? Okay, what operating system are you using? So are you on Windows, Linux, or Mac? Ubuntu terminal on Windows. Try to cancel the installation of Angular. Do you at least have the files that were created for you? Like except for no modules, do you have the files created for you? Okay, so now go inside your application with your Ubuntu command line. So go inside your pizza app. So you need to be exactly where package.json is. So go there and type sudo npm install. I assume you have a root access, right, on that machine. Oh, Ubuntu terminal on Windows. Oh, sorry, what? Ubuntu terminal on Windows? Oh, how is that? I don't understand. Just try to use the How do you manage to have that? Okay. Okay, so try to use with sudo. So through say sudo npm install. Okay, we're just gonna continue. So try to use with sudo and see if you manage to install it. Okay, sorry. Sorry that your computer is slow. And you're not slower. So anyone else? Do you have you managed to write hello on your main page? Okay. So the idea here is that in this in this index.html, right? We are running this uproot. In here, we are running this app component, and this app component, like any other Angular component, is composed of a TypeScript file, which is app component.typescript here, as you can see, and we have a test file, which is a spec file. We don't care about that. You can even delete it if you want. We have a template, a component.html, where we have written the hello here, and you have the styling for that component, right? So each component has these 4 elements, like TypeScript file, test, which is not mandatory, template file, HTML template, and a style file. You can even simplify this more if you want. If you go in the app component.TypeScript, here we have something called the decorator, which comes from TypeScript. I'm not going to go too much into that. What we need to know is that this component, this arrowbus component, aron component, it's a decorator for this app component class. So it's very similar to Java, actually. If some of you have used the Spring, this should be familiar to you. So basically, you can in the backend, this is basically a function that decorates this class with different properties. So as you can see here, the component can be called with the uproot, like that, and it has a template, which is appcomponent.html, and then it has a style, which is appcomponent.css. You can modify this. You can add even more styles. You can change from template URL. You can just remove the template URL and just say template and have the template inline here. But for the sake of uniformity, we're going to have always the template outside in a separate file. So this is the best practice. If we look in our class, we have a property called title. Right? If we go in our appcomponent.html here, and instead of hello, we're just going to output title. We're going to see that we get our property from the class, from the TypeScript class. So if you change this to something else, like pizza place, I don't know, it will change automatically. It will update. Did you manage to have this? Okay, so this is called binding. So we are binding the property from our class, from our component TypeScript file. We are binding it to our template. So here, this is called this swirly curly braces. I don't know what you call them. This is called interpolation. So basically, you can just output as a string. You can output what you have in your TypeScript class. So for example, if I create a new value here, if I say name equals to, I don't know, my name, I can go in the components and I can say here name. Then I'll put it. Now we have our name here. Okay. So as you can see, we have something called the router outlet. What's happening is that we chose when we created the application to have routing enabled. So this is a directive. A directive in Angular is something like an attribute, like a tag that you add to, like a property that you add to a tag, or this is something that comes directly from the router. And what's very important to know is that our entire application, when we are going to go through different pages, the entire application, the pages that we're going to run, they're going to be run inside this. So we're going to see it more in action. Probably you're going to understand better when you're going to make something. We're going to make our application. We're going to convert our pizza application, and we're going to go page by page. So let's remove these properties here, and let's remove this. We don't need these values now. So now we're just going to create new components. So in our application, we're going to have a home page, right? Because we're going to convert the application that we have from course 2 that I made, this one. We're going to convert this to Angular application. So let's make the pages. So we need to have our pages are going to be like home, about, pizzas, and contact, right? So we're just going to make these new components. To create these components, we're going to use the CLI again. So to do this, you can leave this terminal open here and create a new one. So we can add a new terminal here if you want. So we're just going to say ng generate component. Let's say the name of your component. We're going to say home. Just going to put this into chat. Ng generate component home. So this you need to run in the root of your project. As you can see, there were 4 files added to our project. We have a new component. We have a TypeScript, CSS, spec, and HTML. And we have a new update in the app modules. If you go into app modules here, we see that the new component was added into these declarations. This is the way the part I said we're going to put the components. Let's do the same for the other pages. So you are going to do the same command for the about, pizzas, and contact. So we're going to say your ng generate component about. There is also a shorthand here. You can say ng. Instead of generate, you can say g. Instead of component, you say c. So ngc. And the next one is pizzas. Okay, and the same for contact. So as you can see, all our components have been added here in the declaration part of the module. And the files have been created here in the app folder. So we have contact, home, and pizzas. Right? You should have the same thing. Let me know if you have any issues. It's okay for you. Okay, one good news. Someone else? So again, I must say that the stuff that we're going to do today, it's not easy. It's hard. So please take the time. If you don't manage to do everything, either pull from the repository so you're up to date, or take the time to see the video after that again and redo everything. But this stuff that we're doing here, it's really hard, and I would be really glad if some of you have everything by the end of the. It's not working with it work if I just get your app. Yeah, if you get the app from the GitHub, yes, it will work, but you need to do npm install. Otherwise, I need to commit. Actually, I think I can commit the node modules for you. So if I commit the node modules for you, even if it's not good practice, you should be able. The problem is that some modules are dependent for Windows or for Linux. So if you're using a different operating system, it might not work for you. If you clone from GitHub, you should do npm install to upgrade to use your modules. So you need to go after, if you pull, you need to go to your project, your pizza app here, where is the package JSON. And you need to just say, you open a command line. And in your case, you're just going to say sudo npm install, like that, here. Enter and wait for this to resolve. But I think this is the stuff that's crashing for you right now, the installation of the package, right? So let's add the components to GitHub. Okay. So you should have the latest version of GitHub now. Right. So let's go into our routing module. So let's see this one, what this does. What this does. Okay. So here we have in this file here we define our routes for our application. Right? So you can see here that we define a constant of routes, right? And these routes are of type route. This makes sense. If you want to see how this, as I said, TypeScript is a way to have typed JavaScript. So if you go inside this class here, we can see that this is a very complicated class, that we have some methods here and so on. What you need to understand is that the route object has the main properties that we are going to use are going to be path. I'm going to put something. And then we have component. The name of component. So basically what we're going to do, we're going to say like, look, if I put this path here, you render inside this router outlet here, inside app component, you're going to render this component. So let's add our first route. So we can say here that by default, for the default one, is put empty route, which means that the route, the root, the first one that we're going to use, our index, right? And let's say this is going to be in component. This is going to be a home component. This is very important to. This is why it's very important to use Visual Studio Code or some good IDE, because now when we're going to enter this, you're going to see that the home component gets imported from its folder and file. It gets imported here. So make sure that when you do component, if you don't see the IntelliSense, so if you don't see if you don't see something like this, you do control space. And when you do control space, you're forced to have the IntelliSense in the Visual Studio Code. Everybody has this? For you it works, but you are a professional so far. Also you. Okay. Someone else? I hope I don't choose one by one students. Okay, I have to. Come on, give me 3, 4 students that are able to add this. You miss a part. Okay, let me just commit for you. Other routing. So, saying again, in this app routing modules, we're going to define a set of routes. These routes are of type routes. So this comes from the Angular router. You see, we imported here. This is a very complex object. So this is a configuration for the router service. The router by itself in Angular is a very complex thing. It can do a lot of very complicated stuff. But for now, we're just going to use, in this case, we're just going to use it to add some routes so we can navigate to different pages, like the pages that we created, like home component, about, pizzas, and so on. So we're going to create the first route. It's going to be the default route, which is empty, like this. And we're going to point it to home component. When we're going to do this, what will happen is that we're just going to say to Angular, look, when we don't have any route here, when it's default like this, show me the home component, which is this component here. This component is going to be so the router is going to route all of these components through this router outlet here, which is inside our main component. Okay. This stuff you're just probably going to need during your project. You're just going to need to do it once. So basically, if you have it once, then you just copy paste it. There's no need to do this boilerplate every time. But it's very important for you to understand how this works. So most of the times you're going to have your router outlet inside your app component like this. And you're going to, for example, let's add another route here. We add a new object. We add, let's say the first one is about, like this. The second one is pizzas. Third one is contact. And we're going to replace the component we're pointing this. So let's say first one, it's going to be about component. Enter. You see that we import this from the about component. Then we're going to say pizzas component. Again, enter. We're going to import it, and then we're going to say contact component here. Contact component. Enter. We're going to have it like this. So now, when we are going to go into our application, if we say here pizzas, we're going to say pizzas work. About contact. Okay. Where these contact words come from, or pizzas work, or home works, how do you get it? Do you know where this comes from? Anyone? No one. Okay. So this comes from the template of the newly component that we added. So if we add here, no, it's not generated automatically. It comes from the component, from the template. So we see that in the home component, you have inside the home component, which Angular was very careful for us and created a folder. So you have home component, and you have components CSS, HTML, spec, and PS. Contact has the same, about has the same. So if you go in the about component here, and instead of saying about works, we say, I don't know, hello from the about page. And then we go here and say /about. We have this. The same for contact, the same from home, and the same from app component, which in our case is just the router. So, do you understand what's happening in the how do you see the text? Okay. So now let's convert our application, our page, right? Let's convert it to an Angular application. By the way, which one of you has started to work on the project? One, okay. Still one. Did you start working on the project? I put on Slack your final project for the course that you need to send to me before the exam. So, okay, you haven't started. Okay, fine. You're going to need to do exactly the same thing that I'm doing now. So you're going to need to convert your HTML template to an Angular application. So if you have, for example, if you clone the repo as it is right now, right, it's going to be very easy for you to just cut your template into components. So basically, let's say you have a header, you cut that header into a component. You have a carousel, you cut that into a component. The idea being that you're probably going to need to reuse that component some other time, or I don't know, right? So let's see our application here. From the default index HTML that we have in our source, in our source of our project, not in the source folder, so index HTML here, we're just going to keep the uproot and this base href. This base href is used by the router to create the route. So for example, if you add here something like, I don't know, my app, all the routes are going to be like my app / about and so on. So we're just going to say, okay, this is the root of our page and this is the default route. So we're just going to keep only these two. If we go into course 2, Bootstrap and index.html, I'll just open this with a different browser, a different IDE. I'm just going to pass this on the bottom of what we have now. And I said I'm just going to use the base href. Copy this, put it somewhere here after title. So it's up here. And I'm just going to keep this uproot here, which I'm going to put, I don't know, somewhere here for now. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to remove the rest of it. And from the style, I'm going to open it with Sublime. I'm just going to copy the style here. And inside the styles.css, I'm going to paste it here. So basically, you pass everything from the index.html in the Bootstrap site. You're going to pass it here, except the base href and this uproot that we're calling. And everything that you have in styles, you're going to put in styles.css here. Clear for you? Let me just commit this. So our site on top. So you should have the code. So now if you go in our browser, you see we have our application here. So as you see, our pages, our components are still rendered, but are rendered inside our uproot here. Let's say contact, so on. Which is not something that we want. We want, for example, to have in the home page to have everything in the home page, and we maybe want the menu to stay on every page, and we want the footer to stay on every page, right? So if you look a bit in our code here, I want to minimize this. Minimize it. Anyway, okay, control So as you can see here, we have our header, we have our main, and we have our footer here, right? And we have the scripts. We don't worry about this so far. Don't care about it. So what we would want is to have our entire application run inside this main here, right? And we would want to have the header on every page, and we want to have the footer on every page. So how would we do this? Any ideas? So let's say for the header, the first one is the header. How do we have the headers on every page? Great, awesome. Create component and include it. Good. How do we create a component? ng generate. Great. ng gc header. Awesome. So let's do this. So let's create a new component. Let's say ng gc header. And we create our component. Right? We go in here and we copy everything that we have. Let's say including this. You can remove this less than IE7, whatever. You can keep it. It's up to you. Probably not going to see it anytime soon. So let's copy everything from header. Let's remove this. Everything from header, we cut it. We go into our header component here in the template header component.html, and we pass it here, and we save it. Save both. Okay. What happened now is that we shouldn't have the header anymore here. So as you can see, we don't have any header here. So why is that? Any ideas? There's no more header in the index. Okay, so basically we need to call the header and put it here somehow. So on top of the main, we need to put a header. So if we go in our header component in our TypeScript file, we see that in the decorator we have this selector. So this selector tells us you can change this. If you want to have a different name, if you don't want to have up header, you can say, I don't know, up my beautiful header, whatever. You can create, you can put your custom name here. The idea is that we can use this selector, so we can go in our we can go in our, let's say not in index HTML, but let's go in our uproot, an up component. And go in up component here, and on top of the router, we're just going to put up header. So we're just going to say like, okay, this is the header. Here, our header. Here, going to say our routed application, and here, or let's say main. And here we're just going to say our footer. Okay. So in our up component, which is the root component here, I said that we're going to handle everything inside this uproot, right? We're just going to put the header there. So let's see what's happening now. So now we have the header back here. Let's do the same thing for the footer. So we have the footer here. Again, you know by now how to generate a footer component. So we say ng gc footer. We have our footer component here. We copy this, we put it on footer HTML, save it. We go and check what is the selector for the footer. The selector is up footer. We go on up component, and we're going to say here up footer. Now we check if we still have the footer here. We should save everything. Here. Doesn't show for some reason. Footer, we call it as up footer. No, it's not. Just scripts are outside the footer. Are outside the footer, and then it's let's check. No, it's just we have this these links here. It's not important. Those stay in the index HTML. Don't cut them. Okay, the second thing we want to do is that we want to let's put the uproot inside the body here, and let's wrap this router in our main like this. And we're going to take everything that's inside main here. We're going to put it. Okay. We're going to put it in the home component because we want what's on the first page to be the first the home component. There's a home component here. So let's remove this. Remove this. So now I should have something like this. So everything is served inside this uproot. We save this. Inside the app component, we have a router that's inside the main. Then we have a header and a footer. So now if you go on the home page, we should have our page, our home page, our home component, which now renders the home page. If we go and say /about, we have about page, contact, so let me just commit this for you so you have everything. Open the layout. And I'm going to explain again because maybe I don't know if everybody understood what I did. It's fine by you? Any sign of life? Hey, people. No, okay, let me just explain again. So in our index.html, so if you look in our page here, so we inspect element or we view the source. If you see here, we only have our uproot. The browser, when you see the source, you don't have access to what's inside here. It's like a black box. Okay. However, when you inspect it, you can actually see what is being rendered. So if you look here, we have our header or up header component, which has the header. Then in the main, we have our router outlet. In this router outlet, we render the contact, in this case, contact page, contact component. And then we have the footer. In the footer, we have our footer part from our layout. So as you can see, you have inside this uproot, we have basically this uproot is the up component, is this one. We have our header here. Here we have the main. Inside the main, we have the router outlet where we route our pages, our components. So in here, let's say showing home, compact, about, pizzas, page below. Basically, think about that. This replaces that all of these components. And this footer and the header, they never change. They are the same every time. Only thing that changes is this variable here. Is it a bit more clear? I imagine it's not very clear so far. People, please ask questions. Ask questions if you have them. So don't just say it's okay and then. So if you have questions, please ask them now, because this is very important for you to understand. Like, I'd rather take a bit more time today to explain the stuff than. This is basically the building blocks that for your entire exam, basically. Okay, so anyway, I strongly encourage you that when you come to the exam, you come with something like this already done. So don't waste time doing this during the exam, right? So you just, because it takes a bit of time, it's boilerplate, it's not something that you do every day. Anyway, but I strongly encourage you to practice it and to try to understand what is happening here. So, okay, let's continue to our project here. So obviously this application is not done, because let's say if you click on this button, nothing happens. So it would be really nice if you click on these buttons and we'd be able to go to these components that we have here. Let's say if you click on about, you go to about and so on. So to do this, we go in the header where our navigation lies here. And wherever you see these links, because we navigate in a normal application, we navigate through them, we're going to convert them to Angular links, to Angular router links, right? So in this case, we're going to say, instead of href something like this, we're going to say router link, and put empty for the header. The same for the home button. So instead of href, you put router link, and the same here. Router link. Router link, and so on. So let's add the routes. So for contact, it was contact. Just add like this. You can say /contact. For pizzas, you can say /pizzas. Let's see what's happening if you just put pizzas instead of slash. Put about. For home, we don't put anything. So now if we go here, see our navigation works, and you're able to navigate through our pages. Comment this. Did you manage to do it? To replace the hrefs with router links? So here we replaced exactly the routes that we have in our routing module here. So we have, you see, put about, pizzas, and contact. We have exactly the same. So we say, if you want to go to this component click on this, and this is going to resolve the pizza component, and this is going to show inside the router outlet here. So it seems a bit complicated now, but in time, hopefully, it will make a bit more sense. Okay, now the issue is that when we navigate, so when you go to contact, pizzas, and so on, you see this home button is every time is active, right? So it stays active. So we have this class and books that are called active. So if I remove this, you see there's like that, but if I want to show that I'm on a specific page, I can say for about is active, like this. But we want to do this dynamically. So here's the beauty of Angular is that Angular has a lot of methods that are very, very helpful, and they magically work. So if you go here and we say we need to replace this active here with the active root. So you can just say router link active. So this is a directive from Angular. Just replace, sorry, not in the class, but outside the class. So add a directive like this, router link active. And we specify which class do we want to add when this link becomes active. So we want to add active here. And we do the same thing for everybody else. So copy and put not here on top of this. So what's happening here is that whenever a link, a router link gets activated, so our router is activated, this router link active will add the CSS class to this element here. So let's demonstrate this. So if we inspect this, if I click on About, you see now the top element is active. I click on Pizzas, the top element is active, and so on. What's happening here, it's a bit of a, not bug, but it's a bit of a side effect of the router, is that the router will check the entire path of the URL. So in our case, let's say this contact URL also contains the slash, right? Only the simple URL. So also contains the home URL. So this means that Angular thinks that also this element should be active. So for this, you can just go to, if you want to find the fix, go to Angular IO. IO, let's say navigation for router. So let's look for router link active. And here there is a fix for this. You see, like active routes link cascade down through each level of route tree. So parent and child root can links, router links can be active at the same time. So it's exactly the behavior that we have. And the fix is that you need to have this router link active options to have it on the home element. So we're going to specify here. And here I'm just going to pass an object. And with this, I'm going to demonstrate the property binding. Here we're just going to say active, I think strict, exact true. Okay. Exact and true. Okay, so this should fix our issue. So our home is now not active. So we see now we have about our pizza contact and so on. Let's commit this, fix issue with router link active. Okay. So what happened here that we have this square brackets here? What happened here is that when we pass in Angular, when you pass to an element like an li, right, in here, you pass router link active like this. when you pass it without these these square braces, these are braces or brackets, I don't know, I never remember. What's happening is that it will evaluate the value on the right as a string, like as a string property. When you pass it as this square braces, we'll evaluate as an object here. So we'll try to evaluate the expression inside. So in this case, you see we passed the JavaScript object here. So it's not very clear now, but I'm going to show you with an example. So let's make another component for our application. So let's go to the home page here. And let's say we want to make a component for this alert, right? Because we're going to use the alerts everywhere. So we don't want to type it with an alert, we just want to follow the component. So how do we create a component for the alert? Great, ngc, okay, ng, I'm going to type after you, ngGC alert. Okay, we have our component. Let's close all of this. We don't need everything. So from our home component, we are going to copy. So this is our carousel. We don't need it. So we have this alert, right? So we're just going to copy this alert element here. Cut it actually, not copy. Save it. We go into our alert here, and we're going to pass it here. Okay, and how do I call now the alert in our home page? We use the selector. Okay, can you type? How can I call it? So our selector is what? Okay, great. Up alert. Fine. Up alert. So let's see what happens. So we should have our alert as it was before here. So let's say we want to make the color of the alert. We want to make it dynamic, and we want to also make the message here, right? So if I go inside the alert component, I'm going to close everything except the alert component HTML and alert yes here. Let's make a variable inside this class here. If you remember, when we made our first component, we played a bit with title and name, right? We made two variables. So if I make a variable here and I say it's message equals to my alert. And then I go to the alert component and I'm going to interpolate this message here. So this is where stuff becomes to be interesting. Not alert, this message, sorry. Message. So we have this variable here, we bind it here. Great. So what happened now is that we have this my alert here, which is not very useful because, for example, if I go to homepage, don't need to do this, but if I duplicate this, I can maybe more times. I have all of these alerts are the same, right? We need to, if we want to reuse this, we need to be able to pass this variable to them. So what we're going to do is that we're going to go inside here and just convert this message from a property inside the class. We're going to convert it to an input. So let's talk a bit about the inputs. In Angular, like in many other JavaScript frameworks, components communicate top-down. So let's say you have a component inside. Let's say you have app component, then you have home component, and then you have alert component. So they communicate down through inputs. The thing is that in Angular you can only communicate top-down. So like
from here, from home component, I can only communicate, I can pass variables to the alert component only like this, but app alert cannot pass values back to the home component or the component that is called this. To be able to do this, components in Angular communicate up via events. So this is very, very, very important. So remember this. Every time components communicate in Angular, they communicate only in one direction, so only down through inputs and up through events, like that. There is another way they communicate throughout the hierarchy, through services, but we're going to see this later on. But the basics is that, remember this is very, very important, inputs and outputs. The inputs are properties and the outputs are events every time. So instead of having the message as a class property, we're going to make it an input. And we're going to use the decorator like we used here to make this class to make an Angular class. So we're going to say arrowbars input. And you see it was automatically imported from Angular core, right? And now our message became an input. So this means that if I go in my home component and I call this app alert and I say message equals first one, alert 1. Let's copy this so we don't pass too many, we don't type too much. So I have here alert 2, alert 3, alert 4, alert 5. Alert. So now when this refreshes, we have the dynamic component. We can pass here whatever message we want. Let's say alert, it's more clear, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So is it clear for you? Can you tell me if you understood what's happened? Anybody else? Okay. Okay, the idea is that here you can create as many inputs as you want. You can say input, let's say we make an input for alert type. Say alert type, not alert to pay, alert type. And here we're gonna use something from TypeScript. I'm gonna give you your first taste of TypeScript. So in here, for example, for the message, if you want to type it, right, to type it as a data type, you can say the message is string. Right? It was inferred here from the type of the value that we assigned, because you don't need to do this in this case because the variable we already assigned. But if you don't assign this variable here, you need to specify what type of variable this is. Not need, but it's recommended. As I said, any JavaScript is valid TypeScript. So you can leave the message like this, but the message can be after that can be anything else. It can be, let's say, if I leave it like this, the Angular will not know what type of value we pass. So for example, we can pass in this. I can pass an object here. If you remember, if I pass it with square braces, what's on the right gets evaluated. So I can say here, put an object and say blah equals blah, I don't know. And now, if you don't have an error, we should have a string representation of what we passed. So you see, this was evaluated as an object. So the cool thing is that we can define a variable in home component here. So inside home component, let's say we put a variable test equals to, this comes from a variable. Right, so we define this. And if we pass here test, what do you think is going to show? Anyone? No, it's not going to show test. Because if you remember, when we pass it like this, when we pass the variable like this, we pass it as a string, right? But when we pass it like this, we evaluate the value of that variable. And the value of that variable here is this consumer variable. So you see now we pass the value from our home component to our alert component. Let that sink into your... Okay, so again, this is hard to grasp for some, but you're smart kids, and I really think that you'll be able to handle this. But again, we have like this, we evaluate test. If I pass it like this, now what is going to show on the screen if I pass it like this? Yeah, you can put HTML code, you can put whatever you want. Now it's going to be test because we evaluate the string. We don't evaluate the variable. So we can check this. We have test. Right? So I'll leave this like this for you. The thing is that we can put in our alert component, we can say, okay, I want this to be a string every time. The advantage of TypeScript over JavaScript is that with JavaScript, if you have mismatched types, like, I don't know, you have a property that doesn't exist, or we will see later on when we're gonna make complex data structures. You catch those errors, you catch them on runtime, which is bad because on runtime is when the user executes the code, right? Which is not good. With TypeScript, the nice thing is that, let's say in this case, Angular is going to save us. Now, for example, if we create a variable, let's say var2, say const, var2 type string, and then we're going to say var2, we're going to instantiate in the constructor, we're going to say var2 equals 3. So now we're going to have an error, but the IDE is going to send, it's going to insert this. So we have an error. It says that, look, type 3 is not assignable to type string that we defined first. So the advantage of this is that the IDE is going to pull us by the hand and say, look, this is not correct what you added. So you said that var2 is a string, and then you added the number. What's this? So if you want this to work, you either change this to a number. Now it's going to be fine. And if I put this string here, now it's going to be an error. It's going to say like this type it's not assignable to number. So anyway, TypeScript is like a necessary evil for developers, just like in Java. It's bad the first time because you always have to type, not have to, but it's good practice to type the variables and the code. But in time, you can see the advantages, for example, when you use an API. An API, let's say, it sends you an object of a specific type, right? And whenever you let's say you make a request from Angular, when you receive that object, first of all, if you have the type of that object, the IDE will help you to navigate that object. We'll show you. IntelliSense is going to show you the structure of the object. The second is that the IDE is going to show you if you have typos or if you type something wrong. So anyway, let's go back to our alert. So we have alert type. The alert type, we want it to be a specific value. So let's say if you look in Bootstrap for alert, you can see that our alerts can be a primary, secondary, success, danger, warning, info, whatever. We're going to say only for danger and warning, so we don't have too many. So I can say I only accept danger, warning, and I accept info here. Right? So the type that I'm going to push from the home component. So if I put here alert type, Let's say the first one is info. Let's make this like a LGBT alert warning, and success. We allowed it or not? I don't allow it. That's only danger. Again, info and then one. Okay. So now if we go in our alert component here, the template, I'm gonna say we want to replace the value here with the one that we received from the input. What we can do is that we can interpolate that value. We can say here alert type. So this is not the best way to do this. You can use you can bind. I will show you later how you can bind to a class, for example. But this should show us now different colors. So basically, what you can do now is that you can reuse this component now with some params. You can add different params to it, and you can, I don't know, you can. It's more usable. You can do the same thing for the icon. So we can make another variable here, but this is up to you if you want to do it. Input icon, and we can specify a list of icons, or we can just say it's a string, right? And so here, let's here icon, and here let's say the default value is this one. And when we pass it from the home component, we can say icon is, I don't know, oh, I don't know. Yeah. So you can also change the icon. So you can add as many inputs as you want. What's really cool is that these changes are passed. These changes are passed in cascade. For example, if the variable changes in the home component here, this test component, this test variable here changes, right? So let's actually make something like that. Let's say that after 2 seconds, the component changes the value. Let's say we receive some new data, or we have some new info. Let's say set timeout. If you remember, set timeout takes a function, and then you put the milliseconds that you want to wait until you execute that code. So let's put 2000 milliseconds. And here we're going to say this test equals this value changed. So now, if we look in our code, we wait 2 seconds and the value has changed after 2 seconds. But this value didn't change in the alert. This value changed in the home component. This means that the components that we have, the components tree, are reactive. They react to the changes that are on top of them. So if we pass these inputs, if they change, the value will change also on the components below. Is it clear? Okay. So let's add another change here for value changed again. So we refresh, we have this consumer variable, after 2 seconds this value changed, and then it changed again. Okay, so let's illustrate this, let's make something fun. Let's say we make this progress bar here, we make it dynamic, right? So let's say the home component has endpoints that says, okay, your pizza is ready or not, or so let's make this component. Let's make a component I don't know how do we say this, progress. So we go in our terminal and make ng gc progress. This is just for a bit of fun. Okay, so let's close the alert if you don't need it anymore. How can I make this into a component? So I created a component. In the home component HTML, we have this this here. So I take this and put it inside the progress. So I'm doing this a lot of times so you understand. I know it's probably boring for some of you, but it's very important that you know how to create a new component, how to bind it, and how to transmit information in and out from it. So we have this progress. Maybe we don't need to do this for everything, but anyway, let's keep it like this. We check the selector, which is up progress, right? And we call it here up progress. Fine. In the progress component, we're going to add an input. Say input with a percentage. It's going to be a number. Okay. So here, as you can see, we have a bit of an issue because we don't have the name input. So what happened is that the IDE failed to import this. So we just control space, or you can, if you hover with the mouse here, you should see this you should see this prefix, or you should see the let's remove this this yellow bulb it shows somewhere. Doesn't see. Anyway, so the IDE will help you to find this input. If you don't remember that it comes from Angular core, you just which I don't expect you to remember all of the stuff where it comes from. You can just use the IDE to import this value. Okay. Let's check if the input shows as it was before. So now let's make our input basically we want to make this input dynamic. So we're going to say here, let's actually put this a bit, make this easier to read. So remember, this is a jQuery element, right? Our code, so this comes from Bootstrap and jQuery. So what we can do is that we can put the percentage here. Percentage. And what else? We can put the width here. We can also have it like that. Okay, and the same here. Put the percentage. Remember, Angular is going to try to bind these elements to the properties of the this element, of this HTML element. So if we could do it like this, it should be fine. Yeah. Anyway, so this is some TS-linked issues that have gotten in. So we should see that when we refresh our pizza now, our pizza progress is 0, right? Why? Why is the progress 0? Anyone? Anyone, please? Why is the progress here 0 for the pizza? We didn't pass the variable. In our case here, we have a progress, but we don't have a percentage. So if I add here percentage, let's say we pass it like this, percentage. We put, I don't know, 20. Wait. So you see our percentage now is 20% here. So let's do a bit of magic here, and let's say in our home component, type here. So instead of we make a new variable here, we say pizza percentage equals 0 by default. Right? We pass this to our element here. We say it's pizza percentage. Right? So if you go in our home component here, we're going to talk a bit more about ngOnInit, but basically ngOnInit is a lifecycle hook of components. So these are methods that are called every time a component is created. So every component has ngOnInit. So it will go to the constructor, then it will go to ngOnInit. So the constructor executes first, and the ngOnInit is executing after that. The thing is that we use ngOnInit. The idea is that we use this and not the constructor in case, for example, we depend on some services that might not be ready first. So in this case here, the component is not yet rendered. But here, when we have ngOnInit, obviously the component has been initialized, and it's still not rendered, but it is initialized. Anyway, we're going to go through all the lifecycle codes. So let's say we create an interval. So we say let interval equals set interval, and as like set timeout, set interval takes a function, and let's say every I don't know, every 100 milliseconds, which is like 10th of a second, we do something. So we say this pizza percentage plus plus. So we fake our percentage. Right? We'll be the most efficient pizza makers ever. So what do you think is going to happen now? Let's stop it sometime. So it's going to progress like every 100 milliseconds. Is going to progress. So let's say if we reach 100%, if this pizza percentage goes to 100, we stop. Say clear interval and interval. So let's look. We already. You see, our pizza is baking, and so on. So yeah, I could do that also in the constructor. It's not an issue, but I wanted to show you that you can also do it here. So we can move this if you want in the constructor. It's the same thing in our case here. But the idea I need to keep in mind that sometime later we're going to work with services. So a service might not be available in the constructor. So it's really suggested, it's very, very good practice to do all the initializing stuff to do it in ngOnInit. But we're going to talk later. It's the same should work just as fine. If I save this, trash should be the same. So let's put a message here that the pizza is ready. How do you do this? You could do this inside the progress already. You don't need other inputs, right? So a watcher. Yeah, but we already have. We can say like if the pizza is, let's say like message is the pizza status. Let's say your message is this one, and nothing components. Actually, yeah, we need to do it in the photos component. So we can say here we have a message. What's this? Right? So we do this here. We show the message. Okay. So let's talk a bit about the lifecycle hooks. So there is something called we need, as you said, you need the watcher. So we need to see if this progress reaches 100%. We need to change the message, right? So there is something called ng on changes. It's implement a different interface. Changes. And here, this ng on changes takes an input called, you can call it whatever you want, you can say changes, but it's of type simple changes, simple change. Simple changes, okay? Yeah, simple changes. They need to import this. Okay. So now we can console log our changes. So let's see in our here console. You'll see our progress bar. We have every time we have input, the input changes, we have a change. We have a previous value, current value, and so on. Right? So did you understand what happened here? So we call this function gets called every time there is a change in the inputs. So if you add another input, for example, let's say put input, I don't know, some input string. So you see that in our case, only the percentage changed. So only what's changed is showed here. Not only on any variable, but only from the inputs. So it detects every change for our inputs. Right? So we can say here, in our case, we can say console log changes for percentage. Let's see previous value, current value, first change is false, and so on. Look here for the first time. First change is true. We can detect if it's the first change or we don't have the last change, but only the first change. So how do we make? How do we change the message when this reaches 100%? Can anybody type? So we know that our changes, this changes percentage here. So yeah, something like that. So we can say if, first of all, we check if the change for the percentage exists. So we say if changes for percentage is, sorry, not is null or undefined. This is a method from JavaScript utils. I'm using a lot. So you need to pass what's null and undefined. So you say changes percentage. So this is not null or undefined. So then we check the current value, right? We need to check the current value. And we say if changes percentage current value. You see here the IDE already showed me because we typed this, shows me already what are the variable fields. So current value equals 100, right? We can say here this message, we refer to the message from this class, equals, hey, your pizza is ready. Okay, so let's see if this works. The pizza is baking. The pizza is ready. Yes. So you see, it's really, if you get to know a bit how Angular works, it's quite easy to create pretty functionality that is quite complex. Like if you think about if you would have to do this with JavaScript, only with JavaScript, so it's been really, really hard. So keep in mind again here, I'm going to say this detects the changes on inputs. Like I'm going to say here, this is on input. Okay, so let's go a step further, and I'm going to show you how you can change the class of an element depending on the value. So you see here we have progress bar stripe, BG warning. So let's say when the pizza is ready, we make the progress bar. So instead of yellow, we make it green, right? So we say this is BG success. So it should be like this when it's ready. So to do this, you need to bind the element here like this. So you can bind any property of HTML, right? So you can do anything you want. Like for image, you can bind the source. If you provide a simple like in here, even if it doesn't look like this, we still bound the element, but with the string value of this. So instead, our classes are a string value, like we pass a string value with this. But if I say here the class is like this, I can say something like this. I can put the object literal inside. I can say progress bar. I want it true like this. Progress bar stripe is true. Let's say progress bar animated is true. And I can even say here for BG warning is, let's say my progress here, it's the percentage, right? So let's say percentage not equals 100. And we have BG success, percentage equals 100. So this is going to evaluate to this being true if this is not, the percentage is not 100, and this is going to be true if the percentage is 100, right? Makes sense to you? Yeah. So you bind the evaluated value of that element. You remember the test and the test as a variable, right? So in our case, we want this to evaluate the object here. It's always it's reactive, not only one, not only here. Like you can, for example, you can make an input class. It's not recommended, but you can make any input if you want. You can bind to that. Some of them are obviously they are not a good idea to do this. It's not a good idea to make an input that is class because it's going to be very confusing with the class of the CSS class, right? But anyway, the idea is that when I did this, I'm going to bind. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to pass these classes here. So this is something that Angular does automatically. So it's already Angular knows that for class here it refers to the class attributes, the CSS class attributes. So this is a bit of a special case. You can override this, but it's not recommended. So in this case, I said, okay, I want this class I want it to be always, this class I want it to be always, and so on. And I wanted this to change when the values change. So I have one error. Why do we have an issue here? Let's inspect this. 21. Was straight. Unexpected token. Okay, this is weird. Ah, yeah. Sorry. So we need to pass. The property should be valid JSON. It's not an object literal here. We need to put this into. Okay, let's see if this appeared. Okay, so if I refresh, come on, please work. So our progress is going. And now it's green. So if you look again in the classes here, let's look on, let's refresh this. I want to inspect this. So you see the width increases. We have the VG warning here. And when it's going to finish, we have VG success. So it was changed automatically. Right? So, makes sense so far? I want to show you, for example, Angular ng class. So this is how you do class binding. So as you can see here, you can pass. This is the same thing as passing class as I did here. So this is the new way of doing things. You can also say here instead of class, you can say ng class like this. But this, I think, it's more cleaner than as it was before. So you can have ng class or class, like you can pass the values like this, but you need to specify that into string like this. Or you pass an array of strings, or you pass, like I did, an object, JSON, or you pass like with vertical bar, the pipe, or you just pass an object like this. You say, oh, these classes are true. Like I could have done this like this, for example. So this say, let's see if this works. Say, this bar strict. So I can pass this and this. So let's see if this works. It's cleaner. I don't think it took the classes. You either pass it like this or the other way around. So Anyway, so if you want to know more about class binding and property binding, I strongly suggest you go to Angular IO, and there is also a tutorial here. It's called Tour of Heroes. Anyway, we're gonna go through this. But if you want to know more about routing and managing data and forms and I don't know, other CLI commands and so on, you can go here and do more. So let's go back to our application, and then there we do what? We save this. Why is this not striked again? This is weird. Ah, what is this? Yeah, you need to be very careful when you pass this. You don't have any spaces between the single comma and the single quote and the key. Okay. So what other components do we have that we want to change? So in our case, we have this carousel, right? So we would want to extract this into another component. By now, you should know how to make a new component. So we make ng-gc carousel. Yeah, let me just commit this. Hopefully, we get the time to make a shopping cart today. So we make this shopping cart here make it function. But we need to. I think I took a bit too much time to explain all the stuff, but yeah. Okay, so let's close what we don't need here. Now, home component, we have this carousel here, right? So let's keep only 2 alerts so we don't clutter stuff. So we take this carousel. Obviously, it's going to be up carousel. Yes. We go in look for carousel here. HTML. And we save it. So we should have our carousel back here. Yeah, it's here. Let's see if this works. Works. Fine. So how would you implement this carousel? What would you like to have, like as a component, if you want to reuse this component? What elements would you like to have as inputs here? Anyone? What elements would you like to have for a carousel that make it the links to the images? Yes. And the captions, right, and everything there. So okay, let's consider that this carousel here let's consider that it takes a specific data type. So it takes, let's say that our image, our carousel item, is composed of an image, of a caption, of ID, right? Let's say maybe we receive this from outside the source, and maybe a title, I don't know. So let's make in here, make a new folder in our app, let's say models. So these are going to be our models for the for different objects that we're going to create. Later on, we're going to create a bit of objects for the cart, for products, for pizzas, and whatever. So let's make here a new file. Let's say this is a carousel item. TypeScript. So here we're going to make a template for our carousel item. So we're going to type it. So this is a bit more TypeScript oriented tutorial now. So let's say we do export interface carousel. So carousel item. Okay. So what I did here, I said, okay, export this. This means when you say something like this, you allow this element to be imported in a different file. So let's say I go in my carousel component here, save this. And I'm going to say that in my case, we're not going to make an input yet. We're going to say items equals to items is a type of carousel item. Carousel item. So this means that now I can say cannot say anything because I haven't defined the interface yet. So I can have URL, which is type string. I can have a caption, type string. I can have actually have an ID first, which is type number, and let's say you have a title, type string. So now we can say in our constructor, we can instantiate these items, and we can say these items. In this case here, if we say it like this, our items are going to be only one carousel item. So we want an array of carousel items. So we're going to say it's an array of carousel items. So these items equals to an array. And inside, we're going to fill it with different elements here. Now, cool thing is that now the IDE should show me the properties that I have. For example, I have first the ID. It's 0. Then you have the caption. Caption is my first caption. And then we're going to have title, my first title. We have the URL, which is I don't know. Pick some photos. I'll just pick something here. Then I'll pick this guy. And it's going to be this. Let's say we want 1,200 to 400. Okay, so let's add some more here. Let's say ID 1, 2, 3, and 4. Second, third, fourth. Okay, so let's change the images here. Let's say it's 260, 38, 9, 14, 14, this is 41. Okay, good. So everybody's on the same page with what I did here. Questions? Okay. So again, what I did, I created an interface, carousel item, to define a structure. Then in our carousel component, we created an array of carousel items. With the constructor, we initialize this with the values that are on the same interface. If I add here another value, I'm going to have an error because you see doesn't exist in type carousel item. That's why I created an interface. So I have the element typed. So the elements are properly typed. They have a structure. So in our carousel component here, let's see what are the items that are variable that change, right? So in our case, um, the items that change are these carousel items, and we have also these elements here, the indicators, right? Fine. So we can delete all the other carousel items. Don't need them. Exactly. We need to iterate over our array to show the items here. Good, my Padawan. You are getting there. Okay, and also the same for this. Right? What else? Some other thing that is going to bring a bit of complexity is that you see that the first element here and the first element here, they have the class is active. Right? So for the first element, we need to specify the class active. So let's start with the indicators here. Indicators. Okay, anyway. So to iterate, let's first remove all of this because we only need one. So Angular provides something called ng4 off. So this means that if you remember from JavaScript, we had for off loops, for in loops, we have for each, we have all of this stuff. So there is a directive from Angular called ng4. So this lets us to have something like this. We have let item. So it's just like a for off loop. Of items. So these items we're referring. It's going to close everything here, so it's not confusing. So these are the items I'm referring here. So I say for the item of the items in my components here. I can also specify here, let's say let first equals first. So this is Angular. This Angular provides us a value, for example, for this directive. You can say that your first element equals to the first element in this loop. Anyway, don't need to worry about how this works now. You can also say let index equals index, or e equals index, or whatever you want, or f equals first. We also have you can also find the last one. So you can say that last equals last if you want. Anyway, I'm not going to confuse you with this. So this means that for all of these elements, I can iterate. So Angular is going to create for me for all of these elements in here. It's going to create another a line here. One issue that we have is that this data target and data slice tool. The problem these are attributes that are for jQuery. So for now, you're just going to do what I do because it's very hard to explain. But the idea is that this is going to crash if we leave it like this, data target, because Angular is going to try to when Angular sees data target, it's going to try to bind this to different type of binding. It's going to try to bind it to target. So it's going to look for a target element which doesn't exist here. So to avoid this, you're going to say, I think okay, attribute data target. Actually, I'm going to put it in this way. And here is going to be attribute. That's right. The problem here is that these elements here, they are used by jQuery and we are using them inside the Angular component. So don't pay attention to this so far for now. And here we can bind the class and we can say, instead of active, we can say active if this element is first. We say this element here takes can be a boolean, so it will show only if it will be true if only if this element is the first one. So again, ignore this attribute data slide and attribute data type. Only pay attention to this class here. The same thing we do for the images. So for the class here, let's bind first this class. And we put set is true. And again, I'm going to say active if first. Let's not forget to also iterate over this. Let's say here, ng4 equals let item of items let first equals first. Okay. So the same, we have to iterate also for the these are the buttons and these are the images. Let's make this nicer a bit. So here we're going to create a div for every item, and here we're going to create an li for every item. Okay. So in this, we're going to bind, for example, the source. I'm going to say it's item dot item.url. Here you can put out attribute if you want. Here we bind only for the string properties. You don't need to bind with the object. If you would pass a variable, we could say source. You could bind source like this if you want. But we only care about the string properties here. So let's say here it's item title. Then we have cursor caption. Go here. Let's say item title. Here is item description. Description here. Caption, sorry. Item caption. And here we have, we don't care about this button for now. And this should be it. So let's see how can I explain this better. So let's say for every item that we have in our item list, we create an li element and we create the div with the cursor items. Okay. We say in this case you don't need the values of this, only need the active to bind the class. But in this case, we use this item here to output the item URL here and the item title, and also the caption here. No, we don't need the index here. Actually, you could also say you could have index here if you want. Put index. So you create like maybe not even you can say item ID maybe, and then you don't need the index. Okay. So let's see if this works. So we have a beautiful error. So it worked, but we have some issues, I think. Yeah, we didn't copy the style, the CSS, and the our side. Why is this not working? Let's see what's the issue here. Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. So if we inspect this element, so we have a source here. Okay, we show it. Let's see the buttons if they are okay. Data slide to 1, data slide to 0. Let's see. let's have here. Again, the brain of my existence is the carousels. Maybe I didn't close something here. Yeah, close this. Image container carousel. This is fine. Carousel. This is really weird why it's not showing. It's a component. Let's see if you have here. Course. Carousel. Yeah, I think this is carousel item. So let's see. Yeah, finally, carousel will not beat us today. With me at least. Okay, so the issue was here. So let me just remove this. I put carousel instead of carousel item. I was checking the bootstrap carousel and the bootstrap website, and, so that I was missing this part here. So the idea is that now, for example, if you want to add a different element, if you want to add a new element, you just add another one to the site. I don't know, is it one. So you have you can add dynamically images and this. You can have different images here. But which is cool because you could have, for example, a backend that we upload images and you can create photo galleries or whatever. You can dynamically show them. You could reuse this carousel everywhere. So let's say the home component. If you want to make a page full of carousels, so found by you, you can make say a div call and the 6.2. And another carousel here, another carousel here. And everybody gets a carousel. See, so it's full of carousels everywhere. But anyway, now we have issue that this buttons here point to this one here. It can be easily fixed. So you can provide let's go back here. In the carousel component for these buttons, you can provide different IDs, and they will be unique for each component. Anyway, okay. So what next? Let's. Do we have time? Only half an hour. So let's try to make this shopping cart work. So I was briefing telling you about the fact that we can have something called services that can provide us data. So to create a service, you can create via CLI. You can go ng generate service, and let's say in our case. We want to have a store service. Let's name our service store. Put it here and generate service store. You have the command in chat. Commit to the carousel. How many people did I lost so far? No joke. You're there. Okay, great. I need to know exactly what do you think about Angular. Do you think it's cool or do you think it's so complicated so far? What is the general consensus? Cool, not cool, very cool, not very cool, very not cool. It's fine. Okay. The idea is that it has a really a bit a steep learning curve, but the idea is that when things click, when you get to work a bit with Angular, you could do a lot of stuff very, very fast. And you'll be able to do very complex operations later on. So let's try to prototype a bit the products here. So in our case, we created our service there. So in this store here, let's say we want to move the data that we have in the carousel components. We want to move it from here. We want to move it to a service provider. So let's say we want to move it in our store, even if the items are not in our store. So let's copy this. Copy from here. By now, you should see that you have this store service created here. And let's make here public variable carousel items, which is a type carousel item array. So we're going to instantiate here and say this carousel items equals our element here. And obviously in our carousel components now we don't have any items stored. So there are two choices. We either synchronize the carousel component to the store, or we provide from the home component, we connect the home component to the store, and then from there you pass the properties. The philosophy in this is that you need to have something called smart components and dumb components. Dumb components shouldn't know anything about any logic in your application, should only display stuff. So we can say that in our carousel item, in our carousel component, we make the items make input. So input items. See, let's import this input record. I will forget to put the parentheses. So now, obviously, we don't have anything in our carousel because we don't have any items. So we're going to go to our home component, which is a smart component. It's not like local storage. It's similar, but you basically keep the values in the memory of the client. So if you refresh, you'll not have this values anymore. But the service, basically what happens is that when you instantiate the application, every service that you have, there's something called a singleton. I don't know if you learned about singletons, design patterns in other classes, but a singleton basically instantiates only one time specific class. So in our case, this store service gets instantiated the first time. And obviously, the constructor gets called. So every time the application runs, the store service is going to be called. It's going to be present. So every information that you put in this service is going to be available to every component that's subscribed to that service. You have to think in Angular, the observer pattern is very, very used. It's used with reactive forms. It's used with RxJS, with reactive JavaScript. So you have to think about services as something like your cable provider. Let's say that let's say your cable provider only provides you with only one TV channel, right? So you only have one TV channel. Your service provider will not provide you that, will not give you that access to that channel, that TV channel, unless you make an abonnement, right? You make a subscription to that service. For example, if all of you make a subscription to that TV subscription, all of you will get the same service. All of you will get the same data. So this is the thing with the service. You have to think this every time you don't know what is a service, you think about it as an internet provider or TV provider, whatever. You basically, all of you have access to the same resources. Well, by you in this case, you are the components. So in this case, we have to subscribe our component to this store, to this service here. So we're going to go to our home component here. And the way that this thing happens into Angular is that you, in the constructor, there's something called dependency injection happening here. Again, I don't know if you learned about this in design patterns. Probably you learn further on. I don't know if you are a computer science major or you want to learn about this. But basically, you inject the service that was already instantiated. Right? You inject it to this component. So you inject it through the constructor. So we're going to say here, we're going to give it a variable name, private store. So in this, we will have access to this variable all over this component. So we say private store, store service. The type is store service. So now Angular will know that this component is subscribed to the store service that we already created. So in this case here, we can make another variable, let's say carousel items, type carousel item array. And in the constructor, we can say this carousel items equals store carousel items. So basically, we're getting the items from the service. If I want to get these items in the, I don't know, in the header or in the pizza or in the about page, I can do the same thing. I can subscribe to the store, I can get the items, and then I can send these items via the properties of the carousel. So in here, I'm going to say now carousel takes input items. Exactly. So if you want to have the items to more components, it's very useful. So it's very useful if you want to have many components that have access to the same information. Basically what you said. So here we're going to pass the items here. We're going to say items equals to the variable from our home component, which is carousel items. So here, because I put it in a square bracket, it's going to evaluate. It's going to evaluate this this object here. So now we should have our carousel working here. What's cool is that if we go in our store service and we, let's say we remove some values from here, this is going to update. So we're going to have only 3 elements now. So for example, if we use this carousel, for example, we use it with different items, or if we use it in different pages that have access to the same information, it will update everywhere. So this is the trick with services. Make sense? So to recapitulate, we have a service, we have the data here. Later on, we're going to use this service to fetch the data from backend, from API. We have this store service here, which lives on its own and it has its own abstract life. Then we have a component, a phone component, that subscribes to that service, so inject that service into that component, like this. This is called dependency injection. To inject store service. And then we have access to the data in the store. We have access in the component here. And all the other components that subscribe to this service will have access to this. Okay, so we haven't finished. We subscribe to this. We get the items here, and then we pass the items. We pass them to the child component, which is this carousel. And we pass the items here. Make sense? How many people there are lost? Anybody? Nobody? You're still there. Great. What did you understood? Okay. So what do we think? So what do you think we need to make the shopping cart work? So we have this cart. So what do you think we need to have for this? Anybody? So we want to make the shopping cart to be dynamic. We want to implement the shopping cart here. So what do we need to have for this? First of all, the first thing that we need to have for the shopping cart, the component. Okay, great. So let's create a component, which is I think this one. No, it's not this one. So where is the cart component? Dana. Yeah, this is the product. We need to have the cards. So first of all, let's get rid of this product component. Let's get rid of this product here and just have some products. So first of all, we're going to create a model here. I want to say product model. Okay. So we're going to say export. Export. In this case, you're not going to make an interface. You're just going to make a class. Export class product. And here we're going to have name equals. We're just going to define some information here. Image equals something. ID equals 0 by default. Description equals something by default. Price equals 0. By the way, do you know the difference between a class and an interface? In general, in programming. Anybody? You saw it in Java. Okay, so what is an interface? Okay, interface is just like a contract, right? You need to implement the values, the functions, the properties, and so on. In this case, like before, if you remember, for the carousel component, we did an interface. Here we don't have any logic. We just define a structure. And here for the product, we can define methods inside. You can do whatever you want. So export to the class product here, and let's make in the models here. We're gonna make another file that says cart.ts. So we have a sport class cart. So obviously in this cart, we're gonna have products. So we're gonna be of type. Actually, we need to instantiate this constructor. So whenever we create a cart, we need to create a cart with some products. So we're gonna pass some products here. Products. That product. We need to import this. Great. So in the constructor, we can say there's products which you don't have yet, of course, products. So I'm going to make property called products, type product array. Okay. Also, let's make some other properties here. We're going to make we don't use them so far right now, but I'm going to make a private total number. Private, let's put the discount, source number, private size. Let's put add for now. It's enough. So basically, we're going to make methods to automatically add products to the cart. So let's make public add to cart. It's going to take a product. Okay, and public delete from cart. Let's put an index, which is a number. By the way, if you want to define a function return, so let's say you want to define this function returns a string, you can just say here returns a string like this. But it's not the case here. We're going to come back to the cart class later. So let's see. Let's kill some more items here. So the home component. In the home component, let's say we have let's go to the store. We have here product. The product. And we're going to say this product equals to a new array. Define some products. So we're going to say here ID 0. Description, my first product. Image, just going to take some from here. We're going to say it's 600, 400. Name, first product. And price, let's see the price of €10 for the first pizza. Actually, no, let's put pizza names. Say pizza margherita. So making the pizza store, right? So let's add some more other products. It's up to you if I don't know, plan. It's up to you for what type of pizza you want. Pesci and prosciutto. Let's change this is 41. Change the IDs here, some random IDs. Fine. Okay, so in our home components now, we are already subscribed to the store here. So we can say pizzas equals pizzas is that product. You could have made this class name pizza if you wanted, I don't know, but I made like a general general shopping cart. It's a product array. Okay. So say here is pizzas equals store products. So everybody on the same page so far? Everybody understood what we did here? Okay. So adding cart and products. Again, what I did, in the store, I added products that can be accessed from every application. We subscribed to the store. We got the pizzas from the store. Now we can pass the pizzas to the component. The component here. So instead of having all this product here, we can iterate through all the pizzas and show them like this. So what we can do is that we can go down here. We can delete all this crap that we have. Okay. How many pizzas is that person? Okay. So we only have this one. We copy this element. Let's make an up product. We don't have the component yet, but we know how to generate it. So we say ng generate ngc product. Do you have anything else after this? Can I keep you 10-15 minutes more? It's possible. If you cannot stay, you can leave the meeting, but I'd rather see how implement this card. If you have time, if not, I'll just make it offline and send the solving. So we have the product here, and we can say here our product component can make an input, say product, select product, and in the product component we can say here source is products, okay, product.image, and this is product description, and let's say this is the price here. Price show very small button for the price, no value. So How do we iterate over our products? Do you remember? Anybody? ng4, great. Say ng4 equals that product of, I think now we have pizzas here. Let's say pizza actually, pizza of pizzas. And we're going to say here for the product, we're going to pass product component, pass the pizza. Product equals pizza. So actually, yeah. So let's see. So we have a product here, but I don't understand why it's product. Some issue. Card. Oh. So anyway, they show. I need to check why do we have this why display like this. Okay, I don't think we have time for the card, but let's see. Product. Yeah, we could say instead of product here, we can move the class from here. Yeah, I can put a code on Git, but the problem is that I don't want you to be overwhelmed of some stuff because, as I said, it's not easy, and some stuff might seem counterintuitive. So I rather do this with you. So please look. But anyway, if you want it like that, I can have it. So okay, now we're going to iterate over the MD. So the much, yeah. So we have it like this. You can have as many pizzas as you want. So you can have. So the bottom line for today is that I want you to understand the way components work. How do you pass elements? For example, here, again, we took elements from the store. We passed them to our components, to our product components via property binding. So this is the most important thing that I want you to take from today. I hope it's clear. If not, feel free to send me emails and okay. Okay, try to play with your Angular application and try to do some components, play with them, try to do something like this type of functionality. If you need help with your project with converting the application to Angular, let me know and I'll help you on Slack. Okay? So everybody fine with this? Okay. Questions? Do you have any questions? So questions so far? No. complicated, but okay. Yeah, this is it's complicated, but okay. Okay, so see you, I think, in 2 weeks, I think, because next week it's Easter, right? So the next, where is it, where is it, where is it? No, there's nothing to do for the next time you work on your project. Please start working on a project. Also, I prefer not taking the WebEx statistics regarding who watched what and what time they spent on WebEx. So please fill the attendance list. There's a list in Slack or Google Doc, so fill that. So because otherwise I'm going to use the WebEx statistics, and some people I saw that watch for 6 minutes and leave or whatever. They're very detailed. I would rather not use that. So fill the attendance, and yeah, start working on a project because the time is short. I know you think that must be connection issue. Yeah. No, that's why I'd rather not use the WebEx statistics. So in case there are connection issues, I don't penalize someone. So please add your attendance there. And start working on your projects because you don't have too much time, even if you think you have. And please take advantage of the fact that I can help you on Slack. Otherwise, don't come to me the day before the exam and say, I need my project because. Yeah. Okay, so have a nice week, everybody, and thank you for attending. Goodbye.